one of the things that we often see preventing people from making comebacks in the Speed Chess Championship, everyone, is playing lost positions probably longer than you should, because you're also competing against that enemy above our heads there in the sidebar, which is that counting down clock. And if you're going to mount a comeback, you have to do it within the time frame, right? It's a shot clock, if you will. And so, I mean, Danya, again, he's playing Magnus. I don't think that this is the beginning of a comeback for Gukesh. I'm just pointing out that there is some practical awareness of the fact that, like, look,
yeah,
I could lose this game now, or I could lose this game in literally 4 minutes from now, right? If I continue to defend this horrible position. So let's go for it. And I respect that.
Yeah, it's just that you don't quite feel as dejected against anybody when you've got a bad position. Against Magnus, when you start losing a lot of games consecutively, like the moment you're slightly worse, you already feel like there's literally no hope. You feel like you're playing an engine. And I personally don't get this feeling really against anybody but Magnus. It's just a unique sensation of utter hopelessness. And in the blink of an eye, he's up by 5 points. Smarter Chess is sipping some Dom Perignon somewhere in some dark corner somewhere.
Whatever, Smarter Chess. No one even likes you anymore.
Exactly.
Shout out to Smarter Chess. Shout out to the whole crew bringing you the SCC. Shout out to the Fair Play team. Say hi to Magnus's little chair there. You see that little phone on the chair? That's the Fair Play camera observing his field of vision. Of course, there are a lot of other things going into that. But just, you know, hi, Fair Play team. Hi. Love you. Miss you. Bye.
Crazy.
They like our NBA references, Danya.
I see. Yeah, chat really taking kindly to American sports references. Oh,
that was
man.
my
yeah. Gukesh kind of mixing things up here, 1d4. And Magnus at this point just kind of playing chill mode. Bogo Indian, you know, just getting close positions and squeezing them out into victories.
Yep, this interesting structure. You have a Maroxy bind style structure for white with e4 and c4 cramping down on d5 and b5. Black actually has a Boleslavsky hole position, which is not a traditional Maroxy bind, or like you would see in a Sicilian, with the e pawn being traded. You see this position from Bogo Indians and Kings Indians.
Did I just hear a Boleslavsky reference?
You did.
Range? I'm impressed.
You did. Hey, Pawn Structures 101, baby. You ever seen that video series on chess.com, Pawn Structure 101?
I wake up, it's my alarm clock, actually.
It might have helped you before you wrote your positional chess books, you know.
If only I'd known what to watch. It just feels like Magnus is already better here. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Like, from a conceptual standpoint, anytime there's a Maroczy bind, white's supposed to have an objective edge. But the way Magnus has positioned his pieces, his rook's coming to e8, the knight's dropping into c5, there's a hole on b3. You know, Magnus could secure it with a4. It's the Magnus effect. Again, you always just give him the benefit of the doubt, these complicated middle games. It's crazy.
Yep. And despite the space disadvantage for Black's pieces have squares, and that's usually kind of a key indicator. You can have lack of space and your pieces are wrestling, or you can have a position like this. You've got the Black knight maybe has c5. The dark square bishop on f6 is comfortable. You can even play g6 if you want to keep it on that diagonal to back that thing up. The rook on e8 hits the e4 pawn. So Black's position is just fine.
Gukesh going aggressive with f2, f4. The drawback is that now you've got the long-term weakness of the e4 pawn. But the plus side is that in some positions, e5 can be a tactical idea, opening up the light-squared bishop. So Magnus can't fully fall asleep on that idea.
Yeah.
Black could trade everything on d4 and go queen f6. I feel like that's the kind of idea which is up Magnus's alley.
Yeah. Simplify. Remember, the thing that happens to space as the pieces can no longer use it, if you don't use it, you lose it literally with space, which is that the squares become weaknesses and they become holes and they become targets. And so if you play imaginary chess and just do what Don you just did there, take all the pieces off of d4, queens come to f6 and they're traded, those dark squares on d4 and even e3 are weak. The f4 pawn, it starts to look more overextended rather than strong. And this is an important kind of instructive measure a lot of people can take in their games. If you're worse and you have less space, trading can kind of turn that space your opponent has into some open air for you to attack.
Yeah, that's a great point. And of course, it takes the sting out of these tactical ideas like e5.
Yeah.
And Magnus taking a pretty deep think, and there goes the trade and queen f6.
Takes the sting out of the position, just as you said. Takes the sting out of e5, takes the sting out of white's space.
Now, if I'm Gukesh, I would actually go for the trade and then go knight e3 and try to stick the knight on d5 ASAP. Before Black has completed his development, using the fact that e4 is untouchable. We can bring up in a net. Well, okay, actually not, because he's going for it.
He's going for it.
I think he's going to go.
I like it a lot. And by the way, let's bring up the analysis board anyway, though, because after knight e3, let's show why knight takes e4 doesn't work. Knight to d5, and Bob's your uncle with a double attack on c7 and the knight on e4. There you go. Look at that. You were moving the pieces right as I was saying it. I feel so at home with you. I feel so at home with you. I feel so safe. It's hard for me to not be in control of the mouse. It's been my whole life, but I feel safe with you, Danya.
Well, I have big shoes to fill in regard. My arrow drawing is a lot less accurate than yours. I will give you that. But I really dislike Gukesh's move a4. I don't get that at all. Because, the medicine is worse than the disease here. You're curing the problem of Black going a4, but you're creating just massive weaknesses on c5 and b4, more dark squares. You can't afford that.
Agreed.
And now you can't, you can still go knight e3 maybe. But at that point, already knight takes e4 is on the table. He goes rook e3.
Yeah, and the eval bar also agreed. I think you were right. You were right on the money that knight e3 was needed and timely. Now you're defending the e pawn, if anything. But this is a bit of a Magnus effect, right? It's hard. You miss opportunities because you're not looking for them. You maybe play, as you said, the cure is worse than the disease. You play a little more defensive than you should, and Black has solved all of his problems here.
Yeah, and you just slip into defensive mode automatically. Even if you're slightly better, you just assume you're slightly worse because you're playing Magnus. And Gukesh with g4, so he's still trying to build up some activity on the king side.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the queens off the board is a paper tiger, and one typical idea is for Black to later play g5 and carve out this massive outpost on e5 for one of his pieces. So you might see Magnus going h6. He goes g6 though to stop knight f5.
Yeah, I really liked your g5 idea. Of course, it didn't work there because white would have played knight f5, but it is a good one. But here you see, again, it's less space for Black, but show me a bad piece for Black. The bishop and knight are doing what they're supposed to do. The rooks are doing what they're supposed to do. This is how you maneuver and play positions with less space. And like you said, white's, what is that phrase used? Paper tiger on the king side, the big pawn space? Tiger.
Yep. Paper tiger indeed. And Magnus, you just know he's going to savor every moment of this endgame. He just, this is his jam right here. And his jelly.
Jam and his jelly.
I'm pretty jelly of his endgame technique. I'm just going to ignore that.
I could take this so many different directions here. But all right, h4 is played. It is a crouching tiger, even if it is a paper one. Right? He's trying to pounce, create some kind of play.
D7.
That's an interesting move. He's kind of inducing f5, and then he'll probably just go right back to trying to use the e5 square if white plays f5. Yeah, you highlighted it. And
if g5, he can go knight back to e6 at some point. Again, trying to. Well, okay, you can see him chipping away, and knight e6 is going to be unpleasant later. Because if there's a trade on g5, Danny, then the move f5 permanently weakens the g pawn.
I guess if you're Gukesh, though, we keep talking about stopping the bleeding. Maybe the practical. I was just going to say the practical thing to do is just king f2, and do I just sit and say, all right, I'm just taking a draw. Like I'm just going to play king f2, king f3, and what do you got here? Rook e2, rook e3. Maybe that's the prudent thing to do.
It is, and you've got to do it fast. He's taking 15 seconds per move. You cannot afford to drop to 20 seconds here and defend this for another 70 moves. So I'm very pessimistic about Gukesh's chances. Maybe try to trade everything with f5 or maybe even h5, but that requires calculation. And boom, he's down to 30 seconds already.
This is why they play the game. Time is part of it. And
he's taking another 15 seconds on this move. And counting.
When it goes red, when the clock goes red, you got to hurry up.
And you just know Magnus is going to find some way to mix things up here. You don't see it right now. Everything seems to be protected for white. Magnus is going to find the right time to go knight e6 and knight d4, and he's going to jump around, and he's going to win one of white's pawns.
And he's doing it, inducing these pawns forward, saying, come and get me, big fella. Every pawn you push can't go back. Becomes a weakness.
There's the blunder, knight d3. He blundered knight d3.
winning the exchange. Fork
Don't
down.
tell me Magnus is going to miss it. Oh, he did!
Fork down. He misses it. Magnus is missing tactics today.
It's crazy, but he's still winning. It's like the same narrative repeating itself over and over again. He's so positionally dominant, Danny, that he can afford to miss this stuff and still win.
It's good to be king. Bishop E8.
I can't believe he missed knight T3. That was like...
What's funny is bishop F7 is almost zugzwang. Down. Let's highlight the bishop on D1 has to guard both B3 and H5.
Yep.
He's stuck.
Yeah, but the good thing for white, this is what's saving Gukesh. King H4, there's H6 and the pawn slips in.
Aha! Taste the soup. Where's the spoon?
But there's goodbye, B3 pawn.
B3. B3.
Goodbye. No, everything's collapsing here.
Yeah. A4 falls, F5 will fall next, and we will likely get one more game in the 5-minute portion here. If you're just tuning in, maybe watching the SCC for the first time, it's 90 minutes of action of 5-minute blitz before we move into the faster time controls that follow, 3-minute and eventually bullet. We will get one more 5-minute game, I'm sure, after this. I don't think this is going to take another 3 minutes for Magnus to convert.
It's going to take another 10 seconds. The bishop can come back to G8 anytime H6 happens. I would just push A4. I think Magnus might be trying to bleed the match clock, but I don't think so.
It's interesting. Okay. Magnus also very aware of the meta strategy that is that ticking clock you see above Magnus's camera. 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm. There's no way he prolongs this game that long, though.
You can take G4 and then take H6? Okay, no, he doesn't.
Gukesh is going to flag.
Yeah.